So good morning for the revision class. In the last session, we were dealing with the module 2 related to the design process half the way. And today we were supposed to start off with design for X methodology. What is it basically? So I told you in the last class only, we have around 6 to 7 criterias which has to be satisfied to say that the product is designed based on design for X methodology. So we will see about what you mean by design for X. I will just share my screen 2 minutes.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Is the screen visible, Arun?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So this is design for X. So what do you mean by design for X? Exactly. So I told you in brief yesterday, which deals with all these 7 criterias. If a design engineer does the design of a product based on all these 7 factors, then you can tell the product is designed based on these criterias. So this can be implemented to a new product or an redesigning of an existing product. For both of the things, this is applicable. Okay. So designing, you know what you mean by a design. We have studied with respect to design process. So now we are putting some more highlight on design process by adding these criterias. So, designing for manufacture. Everyone knows we do design to manufacture a product. And while manufacturing, you cannot manufacture a huge product into a single piece. There will be many number of parts what we have to assemble. So the design what you provide should be very easy for manufacturing, should be very easy for assembling the parts. And in the meantime, it should not be more expensive and it should not be expensive, it should be economical. And also quality aspect of that product should be good. And the speediness within which the product can be completed also should be very easy. So if all these qualities are there in a single product, then you can say that the product is manufactured based on these criterias which follow design for X methodology. So in this, you know that we have different criterias. So there is a specific terminology which defines what you mean by design for X. So you can see here a successful design must satisfy many requirements. What are these requirements? One is the functionality, how good it is in functionality aspect, and appearance also. Even though the product is of good functionality, if its appearance is not too good, then some of the customers rely on the appearance of the product also. They see it is so huge, it is not compact, and it is not good in appearance. Why we need to purchase it? Even the appearance plays a vital role. The cost, if the product is of good functionality, its appearance is also good, but if the cost is too high, only the rich people can afford. The middle class and the poverty line people cannot think about purchasing also. So even along with the functionality, along with the appearance, even the cost plays a vital role. So even this is one of the criteria. And how durable your product is. If the product is not durable, then also more of the customers cannot claim for this particular product. Along with that, even the reliability plays a vital role. How reliable your product is, how much you can rely on the results of the product through which you are using. If it is not reliable, if it is not providing consistent result on a longer run, then you cannot say that the product what you have manufactured is reliable or not. So all these factors clubbed together will provide you for design for X methodology. Okay. So here, as more life cycle issues come under the study, the terminology to describe a design methodology became to be known as design for X. So here, X terms for various criteria. So one X is for manufacturing, second X is for assembly, the third one is for reliability, the fourth one is for maintainability, next is for serviceability, environmentability, and life cycle cost. So what factors I told you here, the functionality, appearance, cost, durability, reliability, the same things are referred here in terms of X factors. These are the criteria which they have to satisfy to get the product based on design for X methodology. So before going one by one, there are various strategies which has to be implemented. So these are the steps which are taken in implementing a DFX strategy. So what is the first one? The first one is how to determine the issues targeted for consideration. Suppose you have a new product. Okay, so what are the issues which can come into picture when the product is in existence? So those issues are already tackled by this X factors, what I told you. So you should be able to determine which are the issues which can come across while manufacturing a new product. It's not necessary that for all the product, for all these things plays a very big role. Suppose if you're designing a product in such a way with the low material cost, and if you're selecting the material which is eco-friendly, then no need to focus on these issues. Then you should just focus on how you manufacture, how you assemble, how reliable it is, how good maintainability and serviceability you are providing. So both maintainability and serviceability goes hand in hand. So these things one has to take care. And second strategy, what has been implemented is to determine where to give your focus. Where you have to focus exactly as a product as a whole, or you should focus on the individual component related to the assembly factors, or you have to focus on the process plan. All is very much essential. You have to focus on the process plan, how the work is carried out. You have to focus on individual components, how it has been assembled and sub-assembled, and also you should focus on product as a whole. If you leave anyone in between, then it will be difficult for you to manage to get a good product. The third strategy is you should identify the methods for measuring the X characteristics. Anyhow, we have mentioned what are the X criteria. We have 7 X criteria. But how you will measure these 7 criteria? So you should identify some methods which are feasible in measuring all these criteria. So this is about the third part. And last strategy which has been used is the DFX strategy is implemented by insisting the product development team focus on X and by using parametric measurements and improvement techniques. What do you mean by this? The strategy is implemented. So all these are the strategies. All these strategies have to be implemented on a product what you are going to develop, but you are not applying directly into the product. You will be having a team of people who will be focusing on development of the product. So all these strategies should be implemented by the team member and the team leader who takes care about different departments, because you know manufacturing a product cannot be done by a single department. There'll be a different department who manufacture, there'll be a different department who make designing, there'll be different people who takes care of assemble, right? Service sector will be different, and who focuses on the financial aspect of the department of the company will be different. So all these strategies should be taken care by each and every individual who is involved in designing the product and manufacturing it. So these are the basic design for X strategies one has to focus if he wants to manufacture a product based on design for X. Is it clear, Arun? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
No, yes, ma'am.
So next, let us move further. So we are now focusing on the first criteria. What is first criteria? This is for design for manufacturability. So in short, it is called as DFM. Okay, so this design for manufacturability mainly focus on how easy the design is in order to manufacture a product. If the design is too complex, then it will not provide an ease for manufacturing aspect. So when the design team sit and provide n number of conceptual design, the design engineer, the team leader of the design team should select the final design in such a way that the design is competitive with respect to the market, and it is conceptually it is very good, and appearance also of it will be ease, and also to manufacture that particular design it should be ease for the people to manufacture, it should not be a complex one. So the team leader of the design team plays a vital role in selecting the best design which provides ease for manufacturability. So there are many criterias under DFM one has to focus. So the first one is the reduce the total number of parts. I told you already, if you want to manufacture a product, there will be n number of parts. It depends whether the product is of a small device, a medium structure, or a high structured product. If it is a high structured product, there will be n number of parts what you have to assemble. If you have many number of parts, then there will be a problem in assembling, and the people should be very skilled to analyze the grades which has been mentioned on the parts properly, the specifications, so that they made the similar parts based on the design sheet which is provided to them based on the bill of material data, right? So if they are not skilled very well, and if there are many number of parts to assemble, and if the time period given in a company to get the product set out is very small period of time, then it becomes complexity in assembling all the parts together into a single product. And as a result, the first criteria is you have to see the design in such a way that you will provide with very less number of components, so that it will be providing the team to assemble it with an easy way. So this is first option, which is reduce the total number of parts. Second one is to develop a modular design. So what do you mean by a modular design? You know, actual design, we can design it by using drafter in a sheet of paper. You can do the design using an CAD software, right? And then you will do the modeling and simulation, you know, all this process, and exactly the design process how it is carried out, that also you know. So how it is different here? Any idea what you mean by modular design?
No, ma'am.
See, the use of modules in product design simplifies manufacturing activities. Suppose if you're manufacturing a product, on the whole, it will be embedded in the software itself, different modules. So module 1, module 2, module 3. So these modules will help in selecting the materials, in selecting the physical properties, selecting the existing models related to the particular product what you want to manufacture. So if you select module 1, it lists out all the physical properties, which are the available materials, so which material if you pick, which functional properties you are getting, so everything will be in the database. So for you, no need to do the groundwork in surveying with respect to which material you have to start up. Similarly, next module you will, after selection of the physical properties of the material, you will go with the module 2, which basically deals with the design aspects. So related to the product, suppose car, if you think about, there will be many number of car designs already available in the market. So this module shows you all the designs available for manufacturing of the product. So you can have the variety of all the designs. Then you can create your own, or you can modify for the existing module. That means you're customizing the existing module as per your requirement. And next module you can go where you can test the prototype, existing prototype, the materials, the specification, everything will be displayed. Similarly, for each stages, there will be a database which shows the existing specifications in their respective modules. You can go with that, or you can do the modifications and get a modular design for your product as per the need of the customer. I cannot assure that based on the needs of the customer, every module will provide you the exact mapped design, your mapped properties, but something it will show where you can fine tune with the combination of the materials, fine tune with the combination of the designs, and create a modular design which is almost similar to your requirement based on the need of the customer. So this helps in reducing the time period and reducing the amount of time invested by the design people, so that quickly you can get the required modular design and you can do the trial on it, which is more with respect to modular design. You'll get n number of designs in that, then you will do the best conceptual design based on its capabilities, and then the first prioritized design will be selected. So this is about how to develop a modular design. First you will reduce the number of parts, then you will go with the modular design, which helps in reduction in time period and get more compatible design, okay, instead of huge complicated one. So this is about the second. Then use of standard components. The third sector is what is the use of about the standard components. If you provide a design based on the need of the customers, then you can provide the specification with respect to your own part specification, but that might not be based on the standards. If it is not based on the standards, then combination of these parts into a single product will be a complex one. So always they suggest to use the components which are of standard one. So you have to do the design in such a way that the details and the designs for each part will map related to the standard components which are already in existence in the modules. So if you do so, it helps in assembling easily without any complexions. So this is a third criteria as one has to use. And the next one is design parts to be multifunctional. You should not always design part which is single functionality. Okay, so if you design the parts in such a way that the design of a particular product could be used for more than one functionality, then what advantage you get is the same parts could be used in other design for other functional aspects. So it helps in reduction of the manufacturing of the parts because you have that kind of design already with you. So you should try to always design the parts which has multifunctionality in it. And once you have done the parts with multifunctional, obviously the existing design can be used for more than one functional aspect. So this is the fifth factor one has to consider for getting manufacturing ease. What is the last one? It is the design for ease of fabrication. So the material what you select, the parts or the components what you design with multifunctionality should provide very ease for fabrication process. So if you design with a material which is having very much complexity in fabrication and its melting point is too near to room temperature and the material properties gets corroded with respect to the environmental factors and it cannot withstand high temperature, or blending that material to the required design takes a huge period of time, and intervention of human being in that temperature is not physically acceptable. So all these provide some complexity in fabrication. So you have to think about ease of fabrication also. So if you focus on all these factors, then you can manufacture a particular design with ease for manufacturability, because everything will be there in the database related to the modules, and you will reduce the number of parts, and finally you will use the standard components. In every phases you are reducing the time period required. Since you are using the existing database, the quality will also improve. You are not trying anything very new component or very new material, and you are using the parts which can show more than one multifunction. You can manufacture 2 3 products at a time using the same design process. So this helps in reduction of the time period. It helps in getting manufactured the product in a small period of time, and also getting 2 3 products in a single shot, where you can get good sales and profit in a short period of time. So this plays a vital role in any industry or company if you focus on design for manufacturability. So this is about the first criteria. What is the next criteria? It is designed for assembly. So the components what you are going to manufacture or the parts should have very ease for assembling. It should not show any complexity for assembling the parts into a single product. So for that there are certain things what one has to follow. So first option under design for assembly criteria is avoid separate fasteners. Some people have a tendency of using separate fasteners in order to assemble the components one above the other. So it shows that please avoid use of separate fasteners. The use of fasteners always increases the cost of manufacturing the part due to handling and feeding operations, because it has to be handled parallelly, and it also depends upon how you feed the operations that are performed on it, so it increases the cost factor. So they say please use very less amount of fasteners in order to build the components together. And also sorry, beside the high cost, it the operations are not 100% successful. So if it is not fastened well, so the performance of the product can also be reduced. So they say so they contribute to reducing the overall manufacturing efficiency. So they say that please avoid the fasteners. Okay, so by this, instead of that, you can use with the tabs or the snap fits, which fits by themselves without any screws, without any fasteners. So this is one, or tapping it into a proper hole using separate washers. So that will help about in order to overcome this problems. So this is the first one, to avoid the separate fasteners. So to do that, what we have to follow, first one is to minimize the assembly directions and unidirectional assembly. Sometimes the parts is manufactured in such a way that it is focused on one directional assembly. If you tilt the product in the opposite direction, you will not be able to fit. So they say please minimize this assembly direction part in while manufacturing the parts, so that it can fit easily into the given design. So this is the one thing what they have to follow. You can go through in depth. I'm just telling you the main points what you have to focus while providing the explanation in the examination. Then maximize compliance. The compliance of the part to the design as a whole into the product is very much essential. So compatibility should be maximized. You should be providing each part design manufactured with specific tolerance range, so that even though there is a small error in each part component depending upon the upper limit and lower limit, it can fit, and it provide a better compatibility among all the components to find it into a single individual product. So this is about maximizing the compliance. Next is minimize handling. The parts what you manufacture, which has to be fit into a single unit, should be easily assembled with minimum amount of handling. Or else if every time the handling of each component is needed to fit very much, then it becomes an complexity issue, and the alignment of the parts may not also be very proper. So the components should be less in number, and you should not use the fasteners. You can use the other options like separate washers, the tapped holes, or the taps, or the snap fits, and not unidirectional assembly parts which can be fixed in any direction. So if you design in such a way, you will be able to fix the product into a single component with less number of handling aspects. Okay, so this is the third option. And fourth is you have to minimize the part count. I have told you already, the number of counts of the part has to be minimized. So if you focus on all this, that will be helping you to achieve very ease of assembling the parts and sub-assembly of the components into a single product. There are some examples are also given. This is not there in the syllabus. You can just focus on what you mean by design for assembly. DFM we done and DFA we have done, and we'll go for the next. These are the examples. You can just take care. I'm going for design for reliability. Before that, whether we had one more. These are examples. Yeah. You please go through the example later. So here you have an example for design for assembly and manufacturing together. So you can understand how these criteria are implemented. So now I am going for design for reliability. I told you, the design should such a way that it should provide a consistent reliability for a longer period of time. Then only you can rely on the results what you obtain on that particular product. Okay, so reliability is probability that a physical entity delivers its functional requirements. Suppose you use an equipment like an XRD, what we use it for getting the characteristics of the material based on phase transformation. So the data what it relates is usually the 2 theta value. Those are the functional values. If the part are manufactured by using this design for methodology, then the functional values what it yields will be reliable for a longer run. First thing we have to see that its serviceability is good, the maintenance is done properly, and it is manufactured with respect to design for X criteria. Then you can get the functional values consistent. Okay, suppose if you determine a value for a material today and same on the other day or in the afternoon, every time it should show you the same value. If it is keeping on changing, then it shows that it is not consistent. You cannot rely on the values what you are obtaining because it is not designed as per design for reliability. So all these complexions comes into the picture. Okay, so this is about how reliable your product is. So even it provides a very good plus points. Reliability pertains to a wide spectrum of issues. These includes like human errors, technical malfunctioning, because when you manufacture a product, it is done by usually the human beings, and human beings are bound to do the mistakes, which is usually what we call it as human errors. Some errors in design, yeah, some errors in selection of the material or during the time of manufacturing or fitting the components properly. So it can happen. And some, if they are not well versed, they are fresh engineers who don't know the expertise in the technical skills 100%, then it may cause technical malfunctioning and environmental factors. While selecting the material, if you haven't selected the environmental factors properly, then the material what you have used to manufacture the product may result various corrosion, any moisture effects on the material, which are again the environmental factors. And if it cannot withstand, and if it cannot provide you a good result for high temperature, then that also shows you haven't selected the material properly. In that cases, you will get inadvocate results due to inadvocate design practices which are implemented, which are due to the variability of the material what you have selected. So you should use a proper reliability concept so you will get a good reliable results. So how you improve the reliability of the design? You should focus on these factors. First one is to minimize the damage from shipping, service and repair. Sometimes you have procured a very good product. You have imported from abroad countries. And if it something happens during the time of shipping, then and you might have not noticed. So when you use that equipment, do the operation and see the result, it might not show a proper one because it has got damaged either internally or externally during the time of shipping, what you are not aware. In that case also you cannot get a reliable result. So you should overcome in order, so you should manage to see that the equipment is not damaged either during the time of shipping or at the service sectors or when you give the device for repair purpose. So this is the first factor. The second one is counteracting the environment and degradation factors. So you have to please check the environmental factors and at what temperature it degrades, what is its melting point. Okay. All these things, the physical properties of the material with respect to environmental condition also you should focus about. And third factor is reducing design complexity that we have studied already in design for manufacturing. Even that factor plays a vital role in reliability also. Fourth one is maximizing the use of standard components. This also we have studied already in design for assembly, right? So if you use the standard components, then you can get a good reliability, because if you use your own specifications for each components, it might not be compatible enough. If it is not compatible enough, the parts cannot move properly and friction results, lubrication to be needed, and again it results in the loss of the errors, loss due to the errors what you get while measuring. So all these indirectly or directly related to get how good the values are while measuring. And next is determining all root causes of defects, not symptoms, using DFMEA. Okay, designed for manufacturing engineering analysis. Okay, so this you have to determine the main root causes related to the concept of DFMA, and controlling the significant and critical factors using statistical process control. So this SPC is again a huge vast area which focus on quality aspects, statistics of it. So you should focus on controlling the significant and critical factors in the design using the SPC process. And the last one is tracking all yield and defect rates, both in-house and external suppliers. So this is about the last factor. So if you focus on all these factors, by default, you can get a product which is of highly reliable. This is about the third one. Next is design for maintainability. You should design a product in such a way that it has very ease for maintainability. Sometimes you say if you design, you have a car, it could be a petrol engine based or it could be a diesel engine based. Some cars have less maintainability. Some cars, they say that the maintainability cost of this is very high and frequently we have to do the maintenance. It's bad that I purchased this car, I would have opted for something else. Why? Because some designs are based on maintainability aspects, then you get very ease for design for maintainability. If they won't follow this, then you need to invest a large amount of money for the maintenance purpose of the product what you are hiring. Okay, usually designed for maintainability, designed for serviceability, and designed for reliability goes hand in hand. These are all directly or indirectly interrelated. But if you have good service sectors, then maintainability also will be indirectly or directly proportional. So if you are having good maintainability and serviceability, service sectors and maintenance for the particular product in a good way, obviously the product what you use will provide you with reliable results for a longer period of time until when you use it, right? So you can get designed for reliability good results only if it has been designed for good service sectors and good maintenance. If both these two plays a vital role in getting good reliable results for any product. So if you have designed in such a way for maintainability, then This will reduces the downtime for maintenance. Sometimes every half yearly you have to put the car for maintenance. If it has been manufactured with ease of maintainability, it also the car goes in a smoother rate even though you haven't done the maintenance for it, because they say that the parts, the products what you are using is of high quality and the design of it is very much compatible and it is ergonomically designed, and even the customers using it will be happy with less amount of maintenance. Why? They have followed all these criteria. And second one is user and technician maintenance time. It also reduces the technician maintenance time. That's what overall all the factors related to maintainability will be reduced. And if the product or the car is maintained well, then also the amount of injury resulting to that also will be reduced. Suppose if you are using a car of very complex design and every time you need to go for maintenance and the cost is also high, and then they think okay we will go for maintenance later, and if you run the car like this, then you can grab the injuries to him, resulting to the lack of maintenance due to high cost. Right, so that also could be reduced here by using the design for maintainability. And also it reduces the cost which results from maintainability features. So these are some of the factors or the plus points what you get if you use design for maintainability. So, how do you get this design for maintainability? How you can achieve? So, there are some guidelines for it. What is it? First, you should minimize the number of serviceable design parameters. While you provide the design parameters, you should select the parameters in such a way that the service for that particular parameter is not needed or it is negligible. If that is the case, then maintainability also will reduce. If you select the design parameters for which are in need of service very frequently, then the maintenance is also at a long, it's needed by default. Then it increases the maintainability factors. So in this way, by selecting the reduce serviceable design parameters, you can reduce the maintainability factor. This is the first focus what the design engineer have to think about while designing any product. And then he has to provide ease access to the serviceability. So if he is providing the design parameters which are very much essential for the service, he should provide very ease access for serviceability. If it is not there, if it is very far away in very different locations, then it is difficult to manage. The third one is use common fasteners and attachment methods. Previously, they told please reduce the fasteners. If you are using fasteners, also use the fasteners which are easily available, and use the fasteners by which you can attach easily. You cannot use the fasteners which complexion in attaching the parts. So this is the third one what you have to focus. Next is you have to provide the design in such a way that you can fix all the parts or the components together using minimum amount of hand tools. If that is the case, even the maintainability will be reduced. If you are using many tools for attachment, detachment and complexity in design, then it is always very much needed of maintenance, seeing that whether it's lubricated or not, whether it is rusting, if you not use the proper material, some corrosion can come into the picture with respect to the environmental aspects. All these will be going hand in hand. So you should be very careful right from selection of the material to the design to the part, components, assembling, everything. And lastly, design for minimum adjustment and make adjustable design parameters. So you should always provide the design parameters which are providing minimum adjustment and make adjustable design parameters accessible to the people. So the design parameters what you provide with less amount of serviceability should be accessible to the people. If it is not accessible, then you cannot adjust the design parameters. So even that plays an vital role. So these are the guidelines one has to follow for design for maintainability. So next is design for serviceability. I told you maintainability and serviceability goes hand in hand, right? So if you want design for serviceability, that shows that every product which has been manufactured with that design should be having different service sectors and at many number of locations, and it should provide a good service to the product. Then only you can say that the product is good and its serviceability is also good. Suppose the product is very good but there is no service sectors at all, then people say there is no service only properly for this type of products, please don't go for this, other than that you can purchase something else. So this happens due to lack of design for serviceability. Okay, so if this has to improve, you have to follow some considerations. What are these? First one is the customer service attributes. So you have to consider the services are needed for different customers, and all customers are there with respect to every location. So based on the geographical area, you should provide the customer service attributes. And you should also fix the specific labor time so that it is convenient for the people who are working in the office, who are at home, so that they will be having flexibility to give the product to the service sections either in the morning, yeah, afternoon, in the evening also, right? So if you have lack of labor time, you tell no, service is available only in the morning, you cannot get in the afternoon, then they say that the service time is not proper, we cannot go and get the service for our product also, so please don't go for that product. So they should also focus on the labor time, convenient and flexible for the customers. And parts cost should not be very high. Sometimes what happens, you will go for the service of your car and some part or the component is damaged, and there the service people will say that this part is very much expensive, and some people can afford and some cannot afford, right? So the parts what you manufacture also should be very economical, so that if it gets scrapped or damaged, the customers can replace the parts easily with low amount of service cost. And safety, and the products what you are manufacturing should be safe enough to operate, and for serviceability also it should be having the safety factor, it should not harm the servicing people, or it should not harm the people or the customers who are using the product. So it should have the safety factor. And diagnosing, and how to diagnose, suppose if there is a problem in the car, so they should be able to identify, they should be able to diagnose where the problem is coming exactly, right? So they should be having the skilled labors with them so that they can diagnose properly. Even though you have beautiful service station with all the components available, and if the people who have to diagnose what the problem exactly is lacking, then they cannot yield a proper serviceability to your car. So diagnosing capability also plays a vital role. And service simplification, doing a service should not be in such a way that even the people feel it is so complex to do the service for this particular car, I am fed up of doing service for this type of cars. No, if the design is done based on all these criterias, servicing factor for any product using this design for X also will be made simpler, or else it will be a complicated one. And it should provide ease for repairing the parts frequently, and occurrence of the parts which are getting repaired also should be overcome. So this one has to think about, okay, how good you are providing the serviceability, that time the repairing frequency could be reduced, and occurrence of the same problem also can be reduced. And availability of the special tools to provide the serviceability. Even though you have a good service sector, even though you have people who diagnose well, if you don't have specialized tools to do the serviceability, then you cannot do a good serviceability to that particular product, right? So even the specified tools plays a vital role. And last one is failures caused by the service procedures. Always after the service, they provide a feedback form. They ask how good the service of the product was. Were you satisfied? It was okay. You are not satisfied. So if you are not satisfied, we give a negative comments. No, this was not right. That was not right. Right. So if you follow a proper servicing procedure, then no failure results related to the serviceability. If it is not being used, then the failures which are caused by service procedures which are not systematic will keep on increasing. So if you focus on these considerations, you can manufacture a product with ease for serviceability. Okay. So next one is design for environment. I told you the design should be such a way that it has ease for environment. Means the material what you have selected should be eco-friendly. It should not be in such a way that it is toxic to the environment. Suppose you're selecting a material which has a content of lead in it. Lead is obviously toxic to the environment. So it affects badly to the environment and also to all the living creatures. For every living creature, lead is a toxic element. So it is affecting directly from the beginning of the material selection. Sometimes the material what you have selected might be eco-friendly, but the synthesis process what you are following to manufacture a particular product, so that might be releasing some toxic gas to the environment, which is affecting the environment badly. So even the synthesis process, the fabrication process, what you use to manufacture a product should be eco-friendly. It should not harm the environment in any way. So this is the second one. The third one is okay, you have used a proper material which is eco-friendly. You have used a fabrication process which is not affecting the environment. But when you run that product on the road or in the industry or in an organization or in a school, if it is releasing bad fumes, gases, or any other type of toxic elements to the environment, then also you say the product is not designed for environment aspects. This is the third one. And fourth one is of you will use a product for a particular period of time. After every product has its own product life cycle. We have dealt with that also. So once that life cycle of a particular product is done, it will become into a scrap. So when it becomes into a scrap, it has to be demolished. So while demolishing, if these are releasing toxic elements and gas to the environment, again you say that it is not designed for ease of environment. At this stage, if the product is eco-friendly, then the same material could be recycled for another set of products or equipments which are in need. So always you should be able to select the material which is eco-friendly, to select the methodology which is eco-friendly to manufacture or to fabricate a product, and when the product is operating on the road, it should not affect the environment. And finally, when the product comes to an end, its demolishing time also should not affect the environment in any way. If it follows all these aspects, then you can say the product is designed based on ease of environment. So this is about the criteria of environment. The same thing has been explained here. Design for environment, processing and manufacturing part, disposal or reuse. Design for energy efficiency is energy efficiency comes into picture when the product is being in use. And design for environmental packaging. I told you all these four components. So if they ask, you can explain how it should be friendly in environmental way while selecting the material, while synthesizing or processing, and while manufacturing the product. So how good it is eco-friendly while it is being operated or it is packaged from one place to another. Third is disposal. During the disposal or the reuse also, it should not harm the environment. And fourthly, design for energy efficiency, the design of products to reduce overall energy consumption through the product's life. The amount of energy efficiency you are utilizing from each product overall. Okay, so all these are the factors which affects the design for environmental strategies. So if all these are followed, then you can say that the product what you have manufactured is eco-friendly and it will not harm the environment right from the fabrication process to that of the disposal. So you can explain with respect to any example if they ask you in the examination. So almost we are done. There are few extra criterias also. I'm just focusing on the criterias which are needed. Yeah. So we have done all this. Only the last part what we have to do is design for life cycle cost. Last 5 minutes, I will just complete this. Yeah, design for life cycle cost. So what you do is the design you have to design the product in such a way that the life cycle cost of the product will be not too high. You know that a product life cycle has different phases, right from introduction of the product to the initiation of the product, growth of the product, the maturity of the product, and the decline of the product. So in every phase, there are large amount of work which takes place. We have explained this already in module 1. So the design of each and every phases of the product life cycle should be done in such a way that it will not increase the cost of the product life cycle. If it increases the cost of the product life cycle, obviously the price of the product what you're throwing into the market also will be high and it will not be economically feasible. Only rich people can grab the market and the GDP of that product will reduce because there are reduced amount of consumers based on the cost aspect. So you have to design in such a way that the life cycle cost of a product is minimum, yeah, feasible, yeah, economical, such that you can grab more customers to the market. So once you grab more customers to the market, obviously the sales and profit will be higher. The maturity stage will be for large period of time so that you can gain consistent amount of profit. So this is about design for life cycle cost. And apart from that, there are extra factors also given here. Designed for recycling. So how good your material is for recycling. Okay, so that we will come to know in the next class. You have some factors related to recycling of a new product also. Here, what you mean for design for recycling is how feasible the material you have selected so that it can be recycled. If it is eco-friendly, obviously you can recycle it and reuse for other products. So if you select the material in such a way, you can say that it has ease for recycling. Suppose you select a material which is harmful to the environment, you cannot recycle and use that because when you try to recycle also it releases a toxic gas which again affects the environment. And even the government will not provide you the opportunity to recycle the material which is harmful for the environment. So you should always focus on all these criteria. So this will help you. And apart from that, in the notes, there are many other factors which are not there in the syllabus. If you are interested, you can go through design for disassembly also. Well, I have taught you about assembling part. And sometimes if you want to do reverse engineering, you have to disassemble the parts to understand how the design is and then you do the modifications. For that, you have to provide a design in such a way that it is very easy for disassembling the parts also. This is not usually focused in the design for methodology because every product will not be applicable for reverse engineering. If you have intentions to study about reverse engineering of a particular product, then we can focus on design for disassembly also. Hope you understood, Arun. Shankar, hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so these were about all the criterias of design for X. So in tomorrow's class, we will deal about the other parts of the module too. So now if you have any doubts, you're free to ask. Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay, Shankar, what about you?
No doubts, ma'am.
Okay, so see you tomorrow by, I hope we have the class at 9 o'clock. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, take
Bye,
care
ma'am.
then. Yeah, bye, bye, bye. Recording stop.